guys, Samantha from Jessama Tutorials here, and today I'm going to show you a cool project using a polymer clay bezel that we are going to make, and I'm going to show you how to create fractals inside of that bezel using ink. So we first need to make the bezel, so you're going to need a sheet of black polymer clay, and I'm using Primo today. That was rolled out on the thickest setting of your pasta machine. There you are. Then you're going to need a stamp, and now because I'm going with a kind of winter theme to this project, I'm going to be using my Fractals stamp, and this is my polymer clay one, and you can get that off of my Etsy shop Jessama design, but any stamp will work for this. So I'm going to give that a good spray. Then I'm going to take my black, pop that down, lightly spray the top to prevent it from sticking to my fingers, and press this into the stamp, working from one end to the other end so that I push out air bubbles and excess water. And you want a pretty good impression, just like that. Okay, there we are. Then you don't have to worry about the back at the moment, because we're not going to really be doing anything with it. Then I'm just going to give it a light roll, put that off to the side, and then I'm going to gently work it out of the stamp. And just be careful with this because it can stick. There we are. Okay. Then you want to dry the stamp and your tile. Okay, and once that's done, bring over a piece of black polymer clay that's been run out on the thinnest setting of your pasta machine, and just place this onto it so that it has a little bit of a backing, because oftentimes with the polymer clay stamps it does stick, and so you get a few cracks in it. So just popping another layer under it adds extra support. Okay, then I'll just cut this out and get rid of that. Then I'll bring over my cutters. Now you can use any cutters that you want. I'm just using the ones that I like using. So I'm going to be using my largest rounded square from my rounded square set, and the largest circle cutter from my small circle cutter set. I'll provide links to those sets. So what I want to do is I want to cut out the circle first, and then I will cut out my square, and that helps me make sure that I get it symmetrical. So I cut this out and just twist to make sure that I got it out, and then I like to leave the circle cutter in there, or circle in there. Then I'll cut out my square. Now my head needs to be about here so that I can make sure that I get that right. Okay, so I think I've got it in the right spot. Now I'm going to press down with even pressure to make sure that I cut it out. Okay, then keeping that in there, I'll bring over my circle cutter again and cut, just to make sure. Okay, then I'll lift out my circle cutter and lift out that circle. Then lift this cutter out and move this out the way. Okay, and then I'll just recut to make sure that I get that right. There we are. Don't press down hard enough the first time round. And then I'm just gonna get rid of that. Okay, and then you can eye it from here to see if you're happy with the border. And so if you didn't get the border right in the beginning, you can always just redo it. But I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, and I'm just cleaning off these edges because I don't want any little bits hanging around. So I'm just fiddling with it a little bit. Okay, then I'll bring over my flexible tissue blade, pick that up and out of the way, and then I'll bring over a piece of black that was rolled out on my second thinnest setting. Just smooth that down onto the tile. Bring this over. And I'll position the circle cutter in there. And I'm not pressing down, I'm just using this to make sure that it's symmetrical. And then I'll flip this over. Okay, so that it's all in the right spot. And then I'll press down only on the rounded square part. And lift that out. Flip the rounded square. Bring that out the way, and then you smooth off the sides. Okay, and that is how you would make your bezel. And I'm just gonna go and smooth off these sides properly. Okay, and then I'm going to work out where I want to string it. So I do want to string it sort of like a diamond. So I'm thinking that this is going to be the way it's going to hang, like that. Okay, so I'm quite happy with that. Now what I want to do, so I want to bring over some silver mica powder, and any silver mica powder will do. Just gently going to take some on my finger, like that, and highlight this border. You can do a fancier border if you want to, but I'm pretty happy with just a highlight of silver so that you can focus in on what we're going to be doing in the middle. There we are, and I only want it on this part of the clay, I don't want it on the middle or anything. There we are. Close the lid of your mica powder because you don't want that getting spilled by accident. Then I'm going to pick this up and flip, and I'm going to go grab a piece of black clay again that was run out on the thickest setting. Okay, so actually it's a piece of clay that was run out on my middle setting of my pasta machine, so I just wanted to correct that. Now we want to put some texture into that. So I'll bring over my Fractal stamp again, spray that, and I'm only going to be pressing lightly because I don't want the full texture because the clay is not really thick enough for that, but I don't want the bead to be too thick. So I'm just lightly pressing. Here we are. And you could do this with a summer theme, I guess. You could make it kind of green, and then you could do pink and green and yellow and purple kind of fractals if you wanted to. There we are, so you can see it gives it a light texture on the back. Nail dry a tile and your clay again. There you go. Then you'll take that and pop that on the back of your bead. Just gently press it down. And then press this part down as well, just to make sure that you have good contact. Then just cut it out. And now this is a way for you to make any bezel you want, so you don't have to necessarily put fractals and things in here like I'm going to. You can use this technique to create your own bezels, and then you can do whatever you want with them. So that's another thing that you can think about. Then just take your blade, and I'm just using it to gently smooth these edges out. And so I'm not cutting, I'm just smoothing. It's just my preferred smoothing tool, so that these edges aren't bowing out or anything. And then I'm going to highlight the back with silver mica powder, and then we can pop this in the oven for a full hour to make sure that it is properly baked. And then we can start working on the fractals. So I'm just trimming up anything that is left, because you want these edges as tidy as possible. There we are. Then I'll go onto the back and bring over my silver mica again. Just gently take a bit and highlight it. You can see that the fractals are a bit fatter, which is fine. And just be careful of this middle bit where your bezel is, because it's not going to be resting on the tile while you're doing this, and so just be careful not to press too hard and accidentally break through, because I've done that before, and then you have to start all over again, and no one wants that. So I'll continue highlighting this, and then we can pop it in the oven. And so you do want to think about how you want to string this though. So if you want to put a bail on the back, you should do that now. There we are. So I do want a bail on the back, so I'm just going to bring over a sheet of black clay that was running out on the middle setting of my pasta machine. Just gently trim it up, and then I'll bring over my piercing pin. You can use a skewer, anything around that is the width that you want it to be will work. There we go. And then I'll just finish that bit off. Now don't worry too much about this join, just make sure that you have those two pieces joined together so they're not going to fall off. But that bit is going to go on the back. There we go. Then, oops, I'll pop that onto the tile and then just gently press each side like that. And then what I want to do is I just want to take the thin side of my piercing tool, find the seam which is there, bring over my bead, and now I want to work out how I want to string it, okay, so that I know where my bail needs to be. My bail needs to be right there. Then I'll take my tool and gently roll to get that on. And then I'll bring over a brush and my mica powder. And just brush the entire back silver. Okay. So that's what it looks like on the front, and that's what it looks like on the back. So that's all there is to it. Now we want to pop that in the oven. Now you want to find something that you're going to be able to rest this on. So let me just bring over a tile to show you. So I've already got an oven tile, but I just wanted to show you one of my smaller ones so you know what I'm going to be doing in the oven. So you've got the bail on the back and you don't want to be resting that on the tile. So you want to have the bead laid down just like that, so that the bail is hanging over the edge of your tile, but your bead is now sitting nice and flat on your tile, just like that. And you'll bake it like that for a full hour at Primo's recommended temperature. And then because the sides are nice and smooth, because I've smoothed them out quite nicely and trimmed away any excess, we don't need to clean up the sides. So I'll give the sides a quick sand and then I can show you how to do the fractals. Okay, so this is out of the oven now, and so you can see that it's baked quite nicely, but these sides really do need a bit of a sand, and I want to try and give in here a little bit of a sand as well. And I also want to give the back a bit of a sand because I want to expose this pattern just a tad. So I'll bring over my polishing papers and I'll start by sanding these sides clean because they've got a bit of silver mica powder all over them. And you're going to sand from your coarsest grit, which I generally don't go any lower than a 400, all the way up to your highest grit, which in my case is an 8000. A minimum high grit would be 1000, but I'd go higher than that if I were you. So yeah, I'm just going to lightly sand here just to expose the pattern just a tad. Then you'll go up through your grits, and I'm only going to be sanding on the sides now. Go up through your grits all the way to your highest, and then I'll show you how to apply a Renaissance wax. Okay, so I've given it a sand, and so you can see that we've got some nice dark highlights on the back. The sides have been sanded, and inside here we've got rid of most of the silver mica powder, but you don't have to worry too much about in here because we're going to be putting white paint in here, so we don't have to worry about it being perfectly shiny or anything like that. Now you're going to want an old cloth, or in my case I've got an old polishing cloth, and I'm going to take that and I want to apply the Renaissance wax to my bead. I'm going to apply it to the top and to the sides and to the back. And then if you have a buffing machine, I would use it if I were you, because it definitely does it better. If you don't, you can just hand buff it. But I'm going to use my buffing machine. Okay, so now that that is finished, I did some experimenting to see what I wanted it to look like, and so this is what I want to show you how to make. So you can see these fractals and then also all the little bubbles and things that we've got in here. So it's a really interesting piece. So this is what I'm going to show you how to make now. Okay, so the first thing to do is just to lay this off to the side, let that Renaissance wax dry. And what you're going to need is a measuring cup, some Fractal, and I'll bring over that pot so you can see what I mean. Here is what it looks like. So, Fractal. You're going to need a bit of that. I've popped it into a small pot. And you're going to need some white paint and some water. Now any white paint will work. It does have to be white though, and this is the brand that I'm using. And you're also just going to need a spray bottle of water. So you'll open up your paint, and I'm going to pour in quite a bit, and then you're going to water this down till it's like a thick cream consistency. So whether you need to do this or not really depends on what paint you're using. Some paints you won't need to do it at all, some you will, like the one that I'm using. So you'll just thin that down a bit till it's not clumpy, but it's somewhat thin. So you don't want to thin it down too much, that's quite important. The less water you have to add, the better. There we are. So that's thinned down enough. Then you'll bring over the Fractal, and it's about 1 pot Fractal, 1 pot paint once it's thinned down to 2 pots Fractal. That's not an exact measurement, but you don't have to be completely exact with that, but it is a rough gauge to use. Then you want to mix that thoroughly in, and this is your base to work with. Just busy mixing that in all good and proper. So you want it fairly thick, like semi-whipped cream, I guess. Now I'm just going to bring over a tile for me to rest my bead on. So don't mind that it's a little bit messy. Just want it so that bail's going to sit nice and so the bead's going to sit nice and flat with the bail hanging over the edge. Okay, then you'll take this and just gently pour it into the middle section of your bead. And then just spread it out so that it touches all your sides. There we go. And don't mind if there are bubbles. Then I'm just going to pour a bit more in. And then we can let that level out. Okay, and I'm just going to move that over there. In the meantime, I'm going to bring over a plastic bag. And this is just what I'm going to use. And you're going to need acrylic ink. India ink will also work, but I'm working with Liquitex ink today, and so you can see the colours that I'm going to be using. So I'm going to start with this colour. Actually no, I want to start with the black. Start with the black today. I'm just going to drop a bit down onto there, and you don't need that much. Then you're going to bring over alcohol, and you need it to be as high as you can get it, no lower than 90%. The higher you can get it, the better. I'm just going to pop a little bit on there. There we go. And I'm just going to quickly mix that up. And then I'm going to bring over some of that white that we had left, because we did have some left. I'm just going to pour it out onto the tile over here, so this can be like a little test piece for me, so that I can see what it's going to look like. So I'll grab some of that ink and see what it looks like. Okay, perfect. So you want to work with this quickly now. There you go, that's perfect. And I just want a few. And you can feed it. So if you want the fractal to be bigger, just add a little bit more ink into the middle. Okay, and I just want one more, actually 2 more. One on each side here. There we go. So it's really cool to watch. Okay, so that's the one. Now I'm going to bring over this one. And I'm just going to wipe up that little stain over there. I'm going to drop just a little bit onto the tile. Or not the tile, the plastic bag, I guess. And I'm going to drop a little bit of alcohol on there. And I've just got to be careful. There we go. Then I'll bring over my skewer again. And just mix that up like that. And then you want to test it again to see if it's going to work. Here we go, that works really well. So you want to work with that quickly now. And this is going to create your fractals. Now if your fractals aren't working, it's generally because your white mix isn't actually right. So if you put too much of the Floetrol into the white, it can cause your fractals to not work. So just be careful how much Floetrol you put in. The white bit's actually the important bit. There we are, I'll just continue adding fractals. Okay, now I'm going to move on to the last colour, which is this one. And I'm going to drop that onto the piece of the bag. Pop a little bit more alcohol on. And I kind of missed, but that's fine. Just mix that in. And now it's always good to check to see if you've got it right. There we are. It's creating really cool fractals. And you can hold, the nice thing about the skewer is it's absorbing the ink. So if you just hold the skewer in there, you can actually get the fractal to grow. So if you want a small fractal, take your skewer out. If you want a larger fractal, keep your skewer in. Just adding a few small ones. There we go. And I'll just move on to this one again. And each time you move on to one that you haven't used in a while, just double check it, because sometimes too much of the alcohol is evaporated and it won't create a nice fractal. Now if you do happen to mess this up, or something that happens and you're not happy with it, you can always just rinse this out, because it takes about 24 hours for this white to dry. So you can always, if you mess it up, fix it. But there you are, I'm pretty happy with that. Now I want to show you something quickly. I want to just grab some of that and add some more fractals here, so that I can show you what I mean. There, see, that one has the alcohol that's evaporated too much, so just add a little bit more alcohol. There you go. And then you can reuse it. But that's why I'm saying always test it. Let's see, does that work now? No, still needs more alcohol. There we go. So just each time you go back to one, you're going to have to check it. But there we are, I just want to add a few more fractals just to show you what I'm going to do. Here you can see that one's really growing, quite pretty. Okay, that's enough. Now you can take your alcohol, and I just want to move this out the way because it's quite a far-reaching effect. So I'll get that out the way. And now just watch this. I'm going to zoom you in a little so you can see better. So let me just move you into the right place. Okay, now just watch that. I'm going to spray the alcohol from a little bit of a distance away. And just watch what happens. Did you see it? The alcohol creates these bursts, like little bubbles in here. That's something that you can think about. If you want to create not very definite fractals, you can always do that, and it creates a really cool effect. The same thing with the bubbles. If you have a whole bunch of bubbles in here and they pop, they'll create a little open area in the fractal. So let me just zoom you out again and bring this back. So if you look closely, over here, there, and so on, you'll see that there are a few bubbles in here that have popped. And I like having those bubbles because it means that you can have little popped areas that look really cool. There we go. So I'll just see if I can pop that one there. But anyway, so you can see that one popped over there, and it just creates this little bit of an open space, which is quite nice. And they'll pop as you as this dries. So now what you want to do is you want to let this dry for about 24 hours or until it's completely dry. You'll notice that it shrinks right down. The Floetrol will evaporate, the water will evaporate, and so you'll be left with very, very thin skin of paint in there. Then we will put some resin on, and that will be the end of the project. Okay, so my pieces have been sitting curing overnight, and so this is what they look like, and you can see that it's shrunk completely around the sides. So if I show you the bezel there, hopefully you can see that it was all the way up to the top there, but it's dried all around the edges. So you basically just left with a really thin skin of paint. So I'll just pop those over to the side because now we want to mix up our resin. So I'll bring over the resin cup, and this is just a small measuring cup. And I'm going to be using ice resin today, and I'm going to be using this plunger that I got from Linda's Art Spot. And the plunger is really nice because you can now measure out your resin without having to measure it out. Basically, it does it for you, which is quite nice. And it also means that you don't have to use up as much resin as you usually would, because this is measuring this out for you. You can use as little amount as you want. So you'll just take the lid off, Wait till the bubbles all sit at the top and then gently press on the plunger with even pressure. Until you think you have enough. Just going slowly. And then once you're happy, let all the drips drip and then pull this up to suck that resin back in, because you don't want to waste any resin. Then pop your lid back on and pop to the side. And now you have this all ready to mix up. So I'll now bring over a skewer, which is my preferred mixing tool. And I will just mix this together, and this can take up to 5 minutes. I like to mix until I can see all the streaks are gone, and then mix for another minute just to make sure. And with ice resin you have a really nice long working time, up to half an hour in hot weather and generally about an hour in cool weather, if not more. So don't worry about spending too much time mixing. It's definitely worth it to mix it properly, because this is where you can possibly mess it up and have it not cure if it's not mixed properly. And don't worry about the air bubbles, I'll get rid of that in a little while. And so I'll continue mixing until this is finished. And now if you're wondering about what the noise is in the background, it's a little windy outside, so it might sound a little bit howly in the background. So that's just what the sound is. Okay, so I've mixed up the resin. Now I'm going to just let it rest, and I'm just going to bring over this tile, because while we're resining I need this bead to be sitting on something so it can lie flat, and the bezel can just lie flat over here on your tile, but I want to keep it on this tile because I need to move this tile out the way when I am done showing you how to resin it. Okay, so that resin has sat for a little while, and this is to let the bubbles come to the surface. And so I'm just going to bring over a straw, and I'm going to blow to get rid of the bubbles. So just watch that. There you go, so you can see that most of the bubbles are gone. So now we can use this, and the rest will rise to the surface later. So I'll just gently pour that into my bezel. And then I'll just twist it around to get it to sit on the sides. And now I want to put in enough that I get a little bit of a dome, but not so much that it goes into the texture. So this is a little bit of a delicate process. So just gently dripping in the resin. And so I haven't mixed up enough resin to go into that bezel. So the nice thing about the plunger is that you can just go and mix up another batch, and it can be as small as you want it, and so you don't have to worry about not mixing up enough resin. So I think all of that just best go in there. There we are, and that will give me a bit of a dome on there. Okay, just move that out the way. And that's looking quite nice. Now I'm just going to bring it over the straw again and blow. There we are. And that got rid of most of the bubbles. And so I'll let that sit for about another minute or so, and I'll go back over with the bubbles to get rid of any that are still left. And I'm going to mix up another batch to pop in here so that I can resin this as well. Okay, so I've resined both of them. So now I've got rid of all of the bubbles as well, and I'm now going to let them cure for about 24 hours so that they're nice and hard, and then I can get on to stringing this one. And I want to clean up the metal bezel around this one because it's got a few fingerprints on it, so I'd want to give it a little bit of a clean. And then I can show you how to string, and then that will be the total of our project. Okay, so the resin has been curing for about 24 hours, and so now it's nice and rock hard, so you can strike your nail against it and it shouldn't leave any marks whatsoever. So that's what these look like, and I just want to bring those up a bit for you guys to see them up close. And so you can see this one has those little spots on them, and this one has the more definite fractals. And so it's a really fun technique, and you can do it in any colours that you want, but I thought that we should go for an ice theme since the fractals really do remind me of ice. Now, just a side note that I did forget to mention earlier is I do have pre-made polymer clay bezels on my Etsy shop, Jessama design. I'll put up this design as soon as this tutorial is finished, and so you can visit my Etsy shop and get that exact bezel, or there are other different types of bezels that you guys can check out if you want, and that means that you can get started on the fractals as soon as you want. They are undrilled, but you can bake them, and so you can add your own bale if you want to, like we did on the back here, and you can drill them so you can decide exactly how you want it to hang. So I'll provide a link to those so you can go check them out. They're all sanded and all ready, you just need to add either a bale or drill them. Okay, so now I'm going to string this one. This one you would just pop a little bale at the top here and then string it, but I just did this one basically because I had a little bit of resin left, and because I wanted to show you what these little spots looked like once you sprayed the alcohol onto the fractals. So I'm going to be using a pre-made rubber cord today, and you can see the clasp is already here, and it makes for a nice easy stringing. You just slide that through the bale on the back, and I got this off of Fire Mountain Gems if you were wondering. And you'll just slip the clasp on like that, and there's your necklace. Really nice, really simple, and it keeps your focus on the pendant. And so that's basically it for this tutorial, and so I do hope that it was helpful to you, and if it was, please do let me know, as that is always very helpful to me. Please do give this video a thumbs up as well, and comment below on whether you liked this tutorial and if you would like more tutorials like this in the future. And please do share your photos with me. I love seeing the photos of what you do using these techniques. If you happen to post one on Facebook, please just tag me in your photo so that I can have a look at what you've made, as I always love seeing what you guys have done. And please do check out my Patreon account, as that is always helpful to me. I release tutorials every single month, generally around 3 project tutorials every month, doing exclusive techniques that are only on Patreon, from faux opal to some really cool crackle techniques to canes. So please do check that out, and I'll provide a link in the description below. And as always, I hope to see you in the next tutorial. Bye for now!